He told her it was dinner with his mother. He didn't know she had already sent flowers and confirmed his mother was out of town. 15 minutes later, she walked into the restaurant and saw him feeding another woman. She didn't make a scene. She didn't cry. She just walked out and vanished before sunrise. Welcome back to Mr. Charles Stories, where every tale reminds us that silence often speaks, louder than screams, and love isn't just about grand gestures, it's about truth. If you've ever given someone your all and they mistook it for weakness, you're in the right place. Today's story is about loyalty, quiet betrayal, and the moment one woman chose her peace over a billionaire's promises. Stick with us to the end, because this story doesn't shout, it whispers truth, and you'll feel every word. And while you're here, if you've ever been let down by someone you trusted deeply, drop a comment and let us know, what was your quietest goodbye? Now, let's begin. Roy Calderon didn't chase headlines. They chased him. By 38, his face was a fixture on the covers of business magazines. America's most calculated visionary, the billionaire who smiles with one eye, from basement intern to Manhattan powerhouse. He didn't wear flashy chains or custom shoes. His power came from stillness, controlled words, eye contact that lasted a little longer than most could handle. He could sit at a table with billionaires twice his age and make them lean forward. And in that world of polished lies and smooth negotiations, there was one truth Roy once held sacred: Emily. They met in their early 20s, when his life was nothing but pitch decks and vending machine dinners. She was studying fine arts. He was studying survival. She wore second-hand boots. He wore ambition like armor. Their apartment was one room and a dream. Rent was late. Dinner was often shared from one plate, but there was laughter. Trust. Sleep came easier back then. Emily didn't fall for his charm. She saw past it. She believed in the boy before the man. She told him once, while folding laundry on their mattress on the floor, "If you ever become important, remember this version of yourself. This is the one who loves real." He never forgot those words. At least, not at first. Roy built his first company from nothing. 10 staff, shared laptops, one espresso machine. But his brain worked like clockwork. He anticipated trends, merged firms, and took companies public with cold precision. He promised Emily that every sleepless night was for us, that each risk, each mile flown, each dinner missed would someday mean rest and rewards. And when he crossed 100 million in net worth, he proposed. The ring wasn't massive. It was intentional, a vintage piece from a hidden store in Florence. He said, "Because you saw me before I wore gold. So I want you to wear something that lived before we did." Emily cried. She said yes. They married quietly in the south of France. Only close friends. His mother wept through the vows. For a while, it worked. He made moves. She made art. He attended galas. She submitted to galleries. They took vacations twice a year, until he got busy. Then once a year. Then, not at all. The house got bigger. The dinners got quieter. Emily noticed when Roy started texting outside the room, when his perfume changed, when he showered before dinner instead of after. He was still polite, still thoughtful in scheduled ways. But the gap grew. The space between their hands at the table became a canyon. She asked him once, gently, "Do you still see me?" He kissed her forehead and said, "Don't be dramatic." That night, she ate dinner alone again. Then came the lie, the small one. The kind that tells you the truth isn't coming back. Roy walked into the kitchen like it was any other Tuesday. His jacket was slung over his shoulder, tie loosened with calculated ease. Emily stood by the stove, plating the dinner she'd been preparing since late afternoon. 2 plates, 1 lit candle. A quiet jazz record played in the background, the kind they used to dance to before bills and meetings replaced slow nights. "I won't be home tonight," he said casually, eyes glued to his phone. Emily paused, her hand resting gently on the silverware. "Oh, dinner with Mom. Her birthday. Just me and her. Private thing. You know how she is." He leaned in to kiss her cheek, already turning toward the stairs. She smiled, calm and smooth. Give her my love." "I will," he said, already halfway out of the kitchen. She stood there for a long moment, listening to the soft pad of his footsteps disappearing upstairs. The candle flickered. The steam from the food blurred her vision for a second. Not from tears. She didn't cry. She already knew. That morning, Emily had sent flowers to his mother, lavender and white lilies, her favorite. She attached a thoughtful note: "To the woman who raised the man I love, wishing you peace and joy on your special day." 2 hours later, Roy's mother replied with a cheerful voicemail. "Thank you for the beautiful bouquet, sweetheart. So thoughtful. I'm just about to board my flight to Sedona. 3 days of spa heaven with my sister. Love you." The truth was plain. Roy was lying. Emily didn't spiral. She didn't confront him or demand an explanation. The lie didn't shock her. It only confirmed what her instincts had been whispering for months. It wasn't just this one dinner. It was every unanswered question, every distant kiss, every midnight shower that followed a late meeting. She turned off the stove, emptied the plates, carefully stored the food in glass containers, one by one, arranging them in the fridge the way she always did. No wasted movement, no sound. She didn't eat. She didn't sit. Instead, she walked quietly into the bedroom, pulled open the closet, and reached for a soft black dress tucked far to the side, simple, elegant, worn once at a formal dinner they attended when things still felt solid. She laid it on the bed, smoothing out invisible wrinkles. Then, without urgency, she undressed, showered, styled her hair, and did her makeup the way she liked. Soft eyes, nude lips, barely there blush. In the mirror, she looked calm, beautiful, yes, but something in her eyes had changed. It was the kind of look only a woman who's already left, emotionally, could wear. She reached for her phone and opened the reservation app. She typed the name of the restaurant Roy had once casually mentioned when a photo of him and an unknown woman surfaced online. He'd brushed it off then. "Client dinner," he had said. "They always get it wrong." Emily hadn't argued. She never did. But she remembered the name of that restaurant. She booked a table for one, set for 8:15 p.m., 15 minutes after Roy's typical dinner reservation time. She arrived on time. The maitre d' recognized her immediately. Roy had hosted 2 investor dinners there in recent weeks. "Table for 2, Miss Calderon?" "Just one tonight," she said. "Upstairs, please. Balcony corner." Of course. She followed him up the wide staircase, her heels clicking softly against the marble. The upstairs balcony offered a full view of the main floor. Dimly lit, warm, exclusive. Every table below glowed under golden light. She sat with poise, didn't remove her coat, didn't glance at the menu. Her hands rested lightly on the napkin, eyes scanning the floor below. She didn't have to wait long. At the corner booth, Roy entered with a woman who didn't even try to look like a business associate. The red dress was striking, backless, expensive. The woman's laugh cut through the low hum of the restaurant. Her lipstick matched her drink. Roy leaned in, whispering. She touched his hand. He fed her from his plate. Emily's heart didn't race. It slowed. This wasn't the beginning of betrayal. This was the evidence. The ache she'd been feeling for months hadn't been paranoia. It had been prophecy. She wasn't shocked. She wasn't surprised. She was done. She rose slowly. No dramatics, no scene, nobody noticed her. Not the waitstaff, not the diners, not even Roy. He hadn't looked up once. Emily walked out through the side exit of the balcony, took the rear stairs, and stepped out into the night. Cold air hit her arms. She didn't shiver. She hailed a cab. The driver didn't ask questions. On the ride home, she didn't think of the woman in red. She thought of every dinner she ate alone, of every time Roy looked at his phone more than her, of how quiet the house had become, of how lonely she'd been in a marriage where she wasn't even the only one. She arrived home just before 10 p.m. The lights were off. She didn't bother turning them on. She didn't pack. No suitcase. No rage. She walked into the kitchen, pulled a white card from the drawer, and wrote one sentence. "I hope she likes cold dinners and silence." She placed it on the marble counter, turned off the last of the lights, and walked upstairs, not to sleep, but to gather the few things that mattered. A scarf her mother gave her, her journal, a small photo album with Polaroids from their first apartment. She didn't want anything expensive. She didn't want to take anything he could claim with guilt. Before dawn, she slipped out of the house while Roy still slept upstairs. The city was still. Her footsteps echoed softly down the sidewalk. She didn't look back, not once. Have you ever trusted someone so deeply, only to realize they were living a whole different life behind your back? If you've ever caught a lie that didn't explode, but broke you quietly, share your story in the comments. And if Emily's silence hit you harder than a scream would have, hit the like button and subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories. Because here, we tell the stories that leave marks, softly but deeply. Roy slept deeply that night, unaware that the woman he'd built a life with had walked into a restaurant and seen him hand-feed betrayal to someone else. He didn't hear the quiet creak of the front door opening hours before dawn. Didn't feel the chill of the night air that followed her out. Didn't notice the note on the marble counter, waiting for him like a verdict. When he woke, he reached out for her side of the bed. Cold. He wasn't alarmed at first. Emily often rose early to paint or take quiet walks. He sat up, ran a hand through his hair, and called out, "Em?" Silence. He padded down the hallway, still barefoot, heading for the kitchen. The smell of last night's leftovers still lingered faintly in the air. He half expected to see her sipping tea, hair wrapped in a bun, flipping through one of her art books. Instead, he saw nothing. No warm mug, no plates, just a small white card placed squarely in the center of the counter. He picked it up without thinking. Read the words slowly. "I hope she likes cold dinners and silence." His fingers tightened around the card, the sharp edges digging into his skin. He didn't move, didn't breathe. It wasn't a note written in anger. There were no underlines, no crossed-out words, no tears staining the ink. That was what terrified him. It was calm, final, intentional. He called her name again, louder this time. Checked the garage. Her car was gone, but her clothes remained. Shoes still lined the closet. Her art supplies sat untouched in the corner. Even her phone charger was still plugged in by the bed. She hadn't packed. She hadn't planned a long trip. She had just left. And Roy, who could predict market swings and boardroom betrayals before they happened, hadn't seen this coming. The first call to her phone went straight to voicemail. The second, too. By the third, he realized it wasn't dead. It was off. She had shut the door not just on the house, but on any chance of him following her with words. He sent a short message. "Where are you?" Then another. "Emily, let's talk." Another. "Come home, please." And again, no response. He tried to act normal at first, changed into his usual crisp shirt and charcoal slacks, poured his morning espresso, opened the Wall Street Journal. But the taste was bitter, the words on the page blurred. He couldn't focus. He glanced around the kitchen, the one she had designed top to bottom. She'd picked the backsplash tiles after arguing with 3 contractors. He'd made fun of her for caring about warm white versus cool white. Now, the kitchen looked like a showroom. All the warmth was gone. By noon, he abandoned the illusion of routine. He began calling everyone she might have gone to, her sister, her best friend, the gallery owner she had once mentioned working with. Nobody knew anything. Her sister's voice held hesitation. "Did something happen?" "No," Roy said quickly. "We just had a disagreement. I figured she might stop by." A lie. He hated how easy it still came. Her best friend didn't answer the phone at all. He drove past her favorite park, walked the full circle around the pond. The leaves were starting to change. The air had that early October bite. A couple jogged past him. A kid rode a scooter along the path. But no Emily. No trace. By that evening, the illusion broke. Roy sat in the living room, phone in hand, staring at the blank screen like it owed him answers. He felt something sharp twist in his chest. Not panic, yet, more like an unsettling sense that something had permanently shifted. She had watched him lie and didn't scream. She didn't argue or throw things or beg for honesty. She simply left, and that unsettled him more than any fight ever could have. He returned to work the next morning, trying to bury himself in numbers, forecasting models, press releases. But he was late to a call, forgot a major investor name in a board meeting, misread a merger timeline. His assistant knocked lightly before entering his office. "You all right, sir?" He looked up, eyes tired, hair slightly out of place. "Yeah, just a rough night." She hesitated. "If you need anything." "I'm fine," he snapped. She nodded and stepped back, closing the door gently behind her. Roy rubbed his forehead, took a breath, but it didn't help. That evening, he sat in the living room and turned on the security footage. He watched the clips in reverse, clicking back hour by hour until he found her. Emily, leaving the house at 5:08 a.m., wearing a scarf and long coat, one small bag slung over her shoulder. No panic in her walk, no emotion in her face. She didn't hesitate at the door. She didn't look back. She hadn't packed a suitcase because she wasn't going away for a while. She was going away for good. He closed the footage window and sat in silence. The house creaked in the way older houses do, gentle reminders that it was once full of life and noise. Now it echoed. He wandered into the hallway. Her art studio door was ajar. He pushed it open slowly. The easel was empty, but her sketchbook lay on the desk, closed, a pencil tucked neatly inside. He sat down and flipped it open. Inside were dozens of unfinished sketches, eyes, plates, hands, silhouettes, and one that stopped him cold. A woman sitting at a dining table alone, across from an empty chair, her hand holding a fork above a full plate. Roy stared at it for a long time. He remembered that night. He'd told her he was working late. She had waited. He'd come home and gone straight to the shower, and apparently she'd drawn the moment he hadn't noticed. On the last page of the sketchbook, she had scribbled 3 lines. "You don't have to scream to be unheard. You don't have to leave loudly to disappear. You don't have to cheat to be unfaithful." Roy shut the book carefully. The words pulsed in his head long after the room went dark. He barely slept. When he returned to work the next morning, his assistant handed him an envelope. "I'm resigning, sir. I gave HR my notice. 2 weeks, but I'm happy to shorten it." Roy blinked. "Why?" She hesitated. "I need clarity and peace. I haven't had much of either here lately." He nodded. Didn't ask again. Didn't fight it. He was starting to understand why people leave without warning. That night, Roy walked into the reading room. Her favorite chair still faced the window. He sat down in it. On the table were her books. The Art of Stillness, Stories for Quiet People, A Room That Doesn't Echo. He flipped one open. The page had a faint underline. "When a person stops explaining, you've already lost them." Roy closed the book slowly, sat in silence, then whispered, "She's gone." No one responded. Not the walls, not the lights, not the house that once held warmth. Only silence remained, and it was louder than any goodbye. Roy didn't leave the house for 3 days. Food went untouched in the fridge. His phone rang, and he let it ring. Important names flashed on the screen. Investors, board members, his legal counsel, people who mattered in his world. But none of them were her. And he wasn't ready to explain why he couldn't string a sentence together. By the 4th day, the whispers started. The media noticed his absence. Stocks dipped slightly. A tabloid speculated Emily had taken a trip abroad. Another spun it into a rough patch between the beloved billionaire and his mysterious private wife. But there were no pictures of her, no appearances, no traces. Because Emily had done what very few ever managed to do in Roy Calderon's orbit, she left clean. He sat at his office desk in silence. His assistant's desk was empty now too. She hadn't waited out the 2 weeks. She'd packed her things and walked out quietly, like Emily did, like people do when the air becomes too heavy to breathe. He thought about texting again. "Just talk to me." But he didn't. She had said everything in 9 words. I hope she likes cold dinners and silence. He kept returning to that line, over and over. He hadn't cheated once. Not the way most people defined it, but he had betrayed her daily, in moments, in dismissals, in vanishing acts where he disappeared, into business dinners, into empty conversations with women who didn't know his middle name. He had made a habit of being unavailable, of making her feel like an obligation instead of a choice. And now, she had chosen herself. He went back to the restaurant that weekend, wore a dark coat, no reservation, walked in like a man retracing steps he never should have taken. The hostess looked up. "Mr. Calderon, table for 1, he said. She hesitated. "Balcony corner?" He nodded. They led him up the same stairs Emily had walked just a few nights before. The table was empty. Clean linen, polished silverware. He sat down and didn't order. He just looked. The booth where he had sat with Vanya was still there. Different people occupied it now, laughing, clinking glasses, probably saying things they didn't mean. Roy stared at the table like it might show him something he missed. But it didn't. It never would. He met Vanya through a corporate charity gala. She had cornered him backstage after his speech. Quick smile, confident posture. She knew what she wanted. He told her up front that he was married, that his wife didn't understand his schedule, that they were in different phases. Vanya didn't care. She was ambitious. She knew being seen with Roy Calderon opened doors. They began meeting during working dinners, her hand on his knee, her lips whispering flattery between bites of dessert. It was transactional, beautiful, expensive, empty. She moved in when Emily left. Not formally, not with boxes, just slowly, drawer by drawer. But Roy didn't touch her. Not really. He couldn't. The house that once held Emily didn't accept her energy. It swallowed her charm and spat it back out cold. She noticed it too. By the end of her second week, she grew tired of the quiet. "You never talk to me," she snapped one night. Roy was reading the sketchbook Emily had left behind. He didn't look up. "You never smile," Vanya added. He finally closed the book, stood, looked her directly in the eye, and said the one sentence he had been trying not to say out loud. She left peace. "Your noise." Vanya didn't speak. She left the next morning, quietly, one suitcase. She didn't slam the door either, because there was nothing to argue about. She had never been wanted, only used to fill the silence Emily left behind. By the second week, Roy stopped checking his phone, not because he didn't want to hear from Emily, but because he knew he wouldn't. She had never been the woman who issued warnings or ultimatums. She was the kind who left when love no longer felt safe. He thought of their early mornings, back when they used to make French toast and coffee before the world asked anything of them. How she used to trace his jawline with her finger. How she said, "This is my favorite version of you, the quiet one." He hadn't been that man in years. And now, with nothing left to lose, he wanted to be him again. But wanting wasn't enough. Roy drove to her old art gallery that Friday. The owner greeted him with surprise. "She's not here," the woman said gently. "She hasn't been here in a while." "Did she say where she was going?" The woman hesitated. "No, but she looked peaceful, not sad, just lighter." That word clung to him on the ride home. Lighter, that's what life without him had given her. Peace, breath, space, everything he hadn't made room for. He parked in the driveway that night and didn't go inside. He just sat in the car, headlights off, watching his own windows. It wasn't a house anymore. It was a collection of memories she no longer wanted. Later that night, he walked into her old studio again, stood in front of the blank easel, reached for a pencil, drew a line, another, tried to remember how she started her portraits, but he couldn't recreate it. The sketches were hers. The silence was hers, and now the absence was his. Emily didn't stop driving until the city was miles behind her. She didn't play music, didn't check the GPS. She knew exactly where she was going. though she hadn't visited in years. It was a small lakeside town, upstate, quiet and green, the kind of place where porch lights came on at sunset, and people waved to each other without needing names. She arrived just before noon. The air smelled like pine and late autumn. The lake shimmered through the trees as she stepped out of the car and stretched. The house was simple. 2 bedrooms, white trim, a sloped roof. She'd found it online months ago, saved it in a folder titled Maybe. Now, it was her yes. The owner, a kind woman named Joan, handed her the key and didn't ask too many questions. Emily had paid for 3 months up front. "I just need something peaceful," she had said on the phone. Joan smiled. "That's what we do best out here." Inside, the house smelled like cedar and fresh paint. The furniture was soft and mismatched. The kitchen was old but clean. The bedroom window looked out over the water. Emily dropped her bag in the corner and walked barefoot across the wooden floor. She opened every drawer, every cabinet. She wasn't looking for anything. She just needed to feel ownership again. She hadn't brought much. A few clothes, her brushes, a half-used sketchbook, her grandmother's scarf, no photos, no keepsakes. She left the wedding ring on the bathroom sink of their New York home. She didn't need reminders. She needed room to remember herself. That first night, she didn't sleep much. Not from sadness, but from the strange sensation of peace. No sounds of Roy pacing at midnight. No silent meals. No footsteps that paused outside the bedroom, then turned away. She curled under the blanket and stared at the ceiling. The silence didn't hurt anymore. It soothed. She walked into town the next morning. Wore jeans, sneakers, a wool coat. Locals nodded as she passed. No one asked her last name. No one recognized her as the wife of the man whose face had graced Forbes and Bloomberg. At a corner cafe, she bought a muffin and a cup of tea. Ate it on the bench outside. Across the street was a studio with large windows and a hand-painted sign. Color and Clay Art School. Community welcome. She stood there for a while, then walked in. The woman inside was in her early 60s. Paint on her apron. Smile in her eyes. "You visiting?" she asked. "Something like that," Emily replied. "You paint?" Emily nodded. "I used to. We do weekend sessions. Beginners and returning souls. First one's free." Emily smiled. "I'm Emily. Nice to meet you, Emily. I'm Ruth." She returned that Saturday. Watched more than she painted. She liked the quiet rhythm of people creating things that didn't need to be sold. An older man shaped bowls from clay with shaking hands. A teenager painted flowers like her life depended on it. A mother brought her daughter and helped her mix reds into purples. No one tried to impress anyone. It was healing. Over the next few weeks, Emily walked every morning before sunrise, wrapped in sweaters, coffee in hand, lake mist brushing her cheeks. She began sketching again, not for galleries, not for approval, just for her. She drew scenes from memory. A woman staring at her reflection. A table set for 2 with only 1 chair pulled out. A man smiling with a fork in hand, unaware the woman across from him was fading into the background. Each drawing was a release. A truth laid bare. She still hadn't cried, not because she wasn't broken, but because she wasn't. She was aware now. And awareness wasn't weakness. It was power. One afternoon, Ruth approached her after class. "You ever thought about showing your work again?" Emily shook her head. "I'm not in that world anymore." "Well," Ruth said gently, "when you're ready, the world might need what you have to say." Emily didn't answer, but that night she opened a blank canvas for the first time in over a year, and she painted a chair, just one, facing away from a table full of untouched food. Emily didn't speak about Roy, not once, not to Ruth, not to Joan, not to anyone who smiled at her while pouring coffee or offering directions to the hardware store. She wasn't hiding who he was. She was healing from who she'd been. And for the first time in years, no one saw her as the billionaire's wife. No one expected perfection. No one pitied her or praised her. She was simply a woman in a small town, finding her way back to herself. She began to fill sketchbooks. At first, they were simple. Lines, shadows, chairs and tables, faces half turned away. Then came color, muted blues, burnt oranges, the red of her own quiet rage, softened by forgiveness she wasn't ready to name yet. She painted every morning by the window, sun touching her bare feet. She painted without structure, without deadlines, and each piece carried one truth: she had loved someone who didn't see her, and now she was learning to see herself again. Ruth stopped her after class one Thursday. "I meant what I said," she said. "You've got something real." Emily looked away. "It's not about Roy," she said quietly. "I didn't ask who it was about," Ruth said. "But it's definitely about something." Emily gave her a soft, tired smile. "I don't know if I'm ready to be seen like that again." Ruth nodded. "You already are, whether you want to be or not. Your work, people feel it." Emily went home that night and stared at the dozen canvases propped against her living room wall. None of them were masterpieces, but none of them were lies. She saw her loneliness in the background shadows, her grief in the stillness, her truth in the faces she never finished. A week later, Ruth came by with a flyer. "Solo exhibit coming up in November," she said. "We rent out a space downtown. Local artists. Just a one-night thing. I booked you a wall." Emily hesitated. "I didn't say yes. You didn't say no either." She folded the flyer, placed it on the table, and left. Emily sat for hours staring at it. Then she stood, picked out 4 pieces and titled them. "The Woman Who Waited the Bite Broke It." The second plate was empty, the invisible third chair. The night of the exhibit, she wore a soft brown sweater dress, boots, and a calm she couldn't fake. The gallery was modest, lit warmly. The town showed up. Friends of Ruth, students, couples on date night, older folks with wine in hand. No one whispered her name. No one asked about her last one. They just stood and stared at the paintings, at the honesty in them. Some cried, quietly. Others simply looked away, uncomfortable in how seen they suddenly felt. Ruth hugged her. "You did that," she said. Emily blinked back something she wouldn't call a tear. "I didn't think they'd understand." "They don't have to," Ruth said. "They just have to feel it." A local reporter from a small paper approached her after. A woman in her 40s, glasses on her head, pen in hand. "You the artist behind Third Chair?" she asked. Emily nodded. "Would you mind answering a few questions?" Emily hesitated. "I'm not looking for attention." The woman smiled gently. "We don't do gossip here. We write about what matters." That night, Emily answered softly. Spoke about grief, about distance in relationships, about learning how to leave without becoming bitter. She never mentioned Roy, but she didn't need to. The headline the next morning read, "The Portraits of a Woman Who Learned to Leave." In a penthouse in New York, Roy opened the article by accident. Someone had shared it in a group thread he never responded to. The image loading on the page hit him in the chest. There she was, standing beside a portrait. And the portrait was of him. It was unmistakable, not his features, but his posture. The way his hands rested on the table, the half-turned face, the wineglass that sat untouched across from him. He knew that scene. He had lived it. He had caused it. He closed the article, then booked a flight that afternoon. No chauffeur, no assistant, just a coat that was too thin for the temperature outside. He didn't text her, didn't call. He wasn't chasing her anymore. He just wanted to see her truth. Her name was Vanya Lucette, 29, model turned PR consultant, known for walking into rooms like they belonged to her. Known, too, for knowing exactly which powerful man to orbit when the cameras stopped flashing. She met Roy at a tech charity gala 6 months before Emily left. He was giving a speech about innovation and community. She wasn't interested in the speech. She was interested in the speaker. She introduced herself at the bar, champagne in one hand, ambition in the other. "You're Roy Calderon," she said, smiling like it was a secret. He gave her his practiced smirk. "Guilty, She laughed, touched his arm. Let the silence do its work. They met twice after that, both times under the guise of advising her startup. She asked questions she already knew the answers to. He pretended to mentor her, and each time he told himself it was nothing. Emily was home, safe, still his. He was just stretching, entertaining distraction. But Vanya didn't stretch. She aimed, and she always hit her mark. She was the one who leaned in, who brushed against him first, who said, "You don't seem happy," in a low voice over dinner one night. He didn't answer, and that was enough for her to lean closer. "You deserve more than someone who dims you," she whispered. He didn't correct her, didn't mention that Emily had never dimmed him, that it was he who had stopped showing up with light. Instead, he let Vanya believe the lie she needed. "My wife doesn't get my world," he told her the third time they met. "She doesn't want this life." He said it like it was fact, like Emily hadn't spent years loving him through it. When Emily left, Vanya didn't ask questions. She showed up the next evening, unannounced, in a fitted blazer and heels. "I figured this was inevitable," she said, dropping her purse on the console table like she already lived there. Roy didn't stop her. She unpacked a few things, took over the guest bathroom, left her shoes by the bed. She smiled more, wore lipstick that stained his coffee mugs, called him baby in a way that felt manufactured and hollow. He let her, because the silence was unbearable, and Vanya was loud. At first, she filled the house with sound, streaming music while she cooked, though she didn't cook well, hosting late-night video calls in the living room, practicing brand pitches out loud as if she had an audience. She tried to replace stillness with stimulation, but stillness can't be faked. And Roy never met her halfway. He showed up physically, slept in the same bed, ate at the same table, but his eyes were always elsewhere. Once, during dinner, Vanya placed her hand on his. "You're not here," she said. He looked up from his plate. "I'm sitting right in front of you." She pulled her hand back. "But not with me." One night, she walked into the study and found him sitting in the dark, flipping through a sketchbook. Emily's. He didn't look up. Vanya stood at the door and watched him trace a pencil line with his finger. It was a drawing of two hands, almost touching but not quite. Between them, space. "What is that?" she asked. He closed the book gently. "Something honest," he said. Vanya folded her arms. "Are you going to stare at her drawings forever?" He looked at her for the first time that night. "No," he said, "just until I forget how they made me feel." She scoffed. "You need to move on." She left. He didn't argue. Didn't need to. She didn't understand. She thought she had replaced Emily. She hadn't even replaced the silence Emily left behind. The house didn't fit Vanya. It swallowed her voice, dimmed her laughter, made her confidence look performative. She started staying out late. Came back smelling like parties Roy hadn't been invited to. She wasn't cheating. She was fading. And Roy let her. One night, she returned home to find him in the living room. He didn't look up when she entered. "You never smile," she said, dropping her clutch on the floor. He looked at her, then said something so quiet it cut sharper than any scream. She left peace. "Your noise." Vanya blinked, then nodded. She didn't fight, didn't slam doors. She packed her things the next morning and left without saying goodbye. Roy didn't stop her, because he'd stopped showing up for anything that wasn't real. Vanya's exit barely echoed. She didn't cry, didn't demand closure. She took her suitcase, heels clicking against the marble one final time, and left, behind half a bottle of perfume and a silk robe still hanging in the bathroom. Roy didn't touch any of it. He let it sit for a week. Then, one night, he walked into the bathroom, picked up the perfume, and dropped it in the trash. The robe went next. Not in anger, not in guilt, just in clarity. The same clarity Emily had walked away with. Roy sat alone in the kitchen the next morning. The same place Emily had left the note. He hadn't moved it. It still lay there, edges slightly curled from time. He picked it up and read it again. I hope she likes cold dinners and silence. It had taken him days to understand what that note really meant. Emily hadn't left because he cheated. She left because he made her feel like a ghost in her own life. And ghosts don't scream. They disappear. He stopped answering calls from the PR team. He turned down a speaking event at a summit in Singapore. The finance press started wondering why he was going quiet. Headlines changed from admiration to curiosity. Is Roy Calderon in a transition phase? Sources say Billionaire CEO cancels Q4 appearances without warning. The truth was, Roy no longer had the energy to wear the mask. He wasn't burnt out from business. He was scorched from failing someone who had only ever asked for presents. One night, he wandered into Emily's art room again. Everything was as she left it. He sat in her chair, opened the sketchbook again. There was a new page he hadn't noticed before. It was dated the night she left. A woman in a dark coat, her back turned, standing in front of a taxi. A single tear drawn, not from her eye, but resting on her cheek like it had fallen long before. He touched the page like it might warm up, then closed the book. He stayed in that chair for hours. The next morning, he walked out without a tie. His assistant, who had returned on contract to help during the company's slow season, looked up and blinked. Everything all right, sir? I'm taking a week. You don't have anything on the calendar. I know, he said. That's the point. He drove out of the city with no plan, no destination, no suit jacket, no calls. He passed highways he'd only ever seen through tinted windows, stopped at gas stations, took back roads. He didn't know where she was, but he knew where she wasn't, and he could no longer stay there. Back home, her absence still clung to every room. Her perfume no longer lingered, but her energy did. The way she folded blankets, the way she rearranged books, the chipped mugs she'd never let him throw away. He walked into the kitchen that evening and cooked dinner. For two, out of habit. He placed her plate down and stared at it. Then he ate alone. He didn't clean up immediately after. He let the silence stay. He had spent years outrunning it. Now, he wanted to sit with it. The following week, he opened his private journal. He hadn't touched it since his early 30s. It was a gift from Emily, black leather, hand-stitched. She gave it to him on their first anniversary. He turned to a blank page and wrote, I told a lie small enough to excuse, but deep enough to end everything. I didn't cheat with my body. I cheated with my absence. She left peace. I built noise. Then he closed the book and sat still. Across town, a gallery assistant clipped a headline to a bulletin board for next month's art preview. The Invisible Third Chair, solo exhibit by Emily Marchand. Roy would see it, not from a press release, but from a chance scroll through a quiet article the following week. And when he did, he'd know where he had to go next. If you've ever traded someone's peace for your own distraction and didn't realize it until they left, drop a comment. And if you believe peace is something you protect, not prove, then like this video and subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories for more stories that leave a mark. The town of Peniglan wasn't marked on most maps. It lived between two hills, tucked along the edge of a quiet lake that tourists didn't bother naming in reviews. It didn't have a mall, didn't have five-star restaurants or glossy boutiques, but it had something else, stillness, the kind Emily hadn't tasted in years. She moved through her days slowly now, woke up at 6:30, boiled water in an old kettle, poured it into a ceramic mug she bought from a local market. She watched steam rise from it while standing barefoot on the porch, wrapped in a wool cardigan. Birds called from the trees. She listened. It was the kind of peace that didn't beg to be noticed. It just existed. And for a woman who had once lived in the shadow of power, of constant motion, of being almost seen, this was everything. By her second week, she was already familiar to the town's quiet rhythm. The barista at the corner cafe didn't ask for her name anymore. Ruth, the art teacher, saved a stool for her every Thursday. The bookstore owner nodded when she passed, and sometimes left little sticky notes inside the books she browsed. Page 112 will break you. In a good way. Emily would smile softly and tuck the book into her tote. No one here asked what she did. No one asked who she used to be. They only cared that she was here now. Inside the little cottage, her art began to evolve. She wasn't painting her grief anymore. She was painting her release. One canvas held a tree split in half, one side dead, the other in bloom. Another showed a woman walking across a bridge made of her own torn letters. And one canvas stood taller than the others, the one she couldn't name yet. It showed a dinner table, a lavish meal, 2 plates, 1 spoon in mid-air, but only 1 chair. She wasn't sure if it was about absence or freedom, maybe both. The locals began asking about her work. "Do you sell?" "No," she would answer. "Would you consider it? Maybe later." But Ruth pushed gently. "There's an art market coming up. End of the month. No pressure, but I think people would love to see what you've made." Emily didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. One afternoon, she walked along the lake path and saw a girl, maybe 10, sketching in a notebook. The girl looked up. "Are you the lady who paints the sad chairs?" Emily blinked. "I guess I am. My mom says your art is quiet but loud." Emily smiled. "That sounds about right." The girl nodded. "I like it. It feels like when someone says, 'I'm fine,' but their eyes are red." That night, Emily cried for the first time in weeks, not from heartbreak, but because someone had seen her, completely, without even knowing her last name. The art market came. She showed 4 pieces. They sold in the first hour. People didn't ask for details. They didn't need them. Her work wasn't about her anymore. It was about them, about every person who had ever been forgotten at a dinner table, ever stared at a full plate alone, ever felt like they were speaking into a room where no one listened. Ruth hugged her after. "I hope you know what you've done." Emily looked around, at the people standing still in front of her paintings, at the couples holding hands tighter, at the silent nods between strangers. "I didn't know silence could be contagious," she whispered. Ruth smiled. "Yours is." That night, she started a new canvas. No figures, no chairs, just an open window, sheer curtains blowing, a path leading away. She wasn't sure where it led, but this time, she wasn't afraid to find out. Emily hung the new canvas on her wall, even though it wasn't finished. She did that sometimes, left things exposed, incomplete, not because she was unsure of how to end them, but because she wanted to live with the questions first. The canvas with the open window and the path wasn't about escape. It was about arrival. She didn't want to leave this place. Not yet. Not when it was the first space that didn't ask her to perform. Her routine deepened. Mornings painting, afternoons walking, Saturdays at the studio with Ruth and the others. She had become someone new, still soft, still thoughtful, but not breakable anymore. One afternoon, Ruth showed up with a flyer. Gallery opening. 1 night only. They want local artists. No commission, just expression. Emily hesitated. "I don't know if I'm ready to do a real exhibit again." "You already did one. That was a folding table outside a bookstore. And it changed people." Ruth smiled. "These ones will be indoors, but they'll still have eyes and hearts. Let them feel something." Emily took the flyer, sat with it for 3 days, then said yes. She didn't prepare anything new. She chose the 4 most honest pieces she had. The invisible third chair, the fork in mid-air dinner, for no one absence with salt. She didn't plan to speak. She just wanted them to be seen. The gallery night arrived. It wasn't big. No red carpet. No interviews. Just people. Locals, a few collectors from nearby cities. And among them, someone stood silently, unnoticed. Not yet. Roy didn't know where she lived. He didn't track her down through lawyers or private investigators. He had read the article about her art show online, an article meant for a regional audience. He wasn't supposed to see it, but someone had shared it in a finance group chat, mocking it casually. "Remember Roy Calderon's ghost wife? She's doing tragic little paintings now." He clicked the link and froze, because the painting featured wasn't tragic. It was haunting. A table, a meal, a chair that should have been his. The title, The Invisible Third Chair. He drove 6 hours in silence. No plan, no script, no expectations. He parked his car 3 blocks from the gallery, walked the rest of the way, bought a coat from a gas station on the edge of town. It wasn't warm enough. He didn't care. He arrived early, waited across the street, watched people filter in, then entered quietly. The lights inside were soft, the kind that didn't glare or boast. People moved slowly, whispered, cried. No one noticed him until he stood in front of her piece and saw himself, not his face, but his presence, or rather, his absence. He stood for a long time, didn't blink, didn't move. And when Emily finally entered the gallery, she saw him. He didn't look over. She didn't stop walking. She made a quiet circle around the room, speaking to others, nodding at compliments, then made her way to where he stood. They didn't hug, didn't reach, just stood, shoulder to shoulder. She broke the silence. "Long drive?" He nodded. "I needed to see it." She didn't ask what he saw. He didn't ask if she forgave him. They just stared forward, letting the painting say what they couldn't. Emily hadn't painted that piece for him. She painted it for herself. For every time she set the table, knowing she'd eat alone. For every glass of wine she poured and left untouched. For every night she reheated meals he never showed up to eat. But now, seeing Roy stand in front of it, saying nothing, she realized something. The painting had found him anyway. After a while, he turned to her. "Is that really how it felt?" Emily didn't hesitate. "No, that's how it looked. How it felt was lonelier." Roy's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He nodded, then looked down, like the floor offered answers. "I didn't think it was that bad." "You didn't think at all, Roy. You scheduled presence. You performed warmth, but your eyes were always elsewhere. I didn't sleep with her before you left." Emily blinked, slow and calm. "You think that's the line?" He looked up. "It wasn't about the act," she said. "It was about the erosion. The little pieces of me you chipped away with every lie you told that wasn't even dramatic enough to fight over." He stood quietly, let it all land, then whispered, "I lied about dinner, but you didn't even yell." "I was too tired," she said. "Tired of auditioning to be your wife every night, while you memorized scripts for women who never saw your soul." They didn't argue. They didn't cry. It wasn't that kind of night. This wasn't closure. It was observation. He looked at the painting again. "You painted the chair wrong," he said softly. "No, I didn't," she replied. "That's exactly how it looked. No. The chair should be turned slightly toward the door. Because I always knew, deep down, you'd leave." Emily's breath caught for just a moment, but she didn't give him the gift of knowing that. As the crowd thinned, people offered compliments. "Raw and restrained," one woman said. "The emotion in the shadows is heavy. I saw my own divorce in it," another whispered. "Did you name it after something personal?" one man asked. Emily just smiled. Let the art do the answering. After the gallery closed, she didn't offer him coffee, didn't invite him to walk her home. She simply said, "Thank you for coming," and he nodded. He stepped outside, turned back for one last look, but she was already gone. That night, she didn't cry. She didn't shake. She lit a candle, made tea, sat in front of a blank canvas. Then she painted something new. A table, yes, but this time, only one plate, and a chair that faced the window. No shadows, no emptiness, just quiet, just peace. The next morning, Emily woke up before the sun. She wrapped herself in a cardigan, poured warm water over tea leaves, and stepped onto the porch. The sky was still grey. The lake hadn't started to shimmer yet. She sat with her thoughts. Not about Roy, not about the exhibit, not even about what came next. She sat with herself, fully. That was something she hadn't done in years. Her phone vibrated once on the table beside her. It was a message from Ruth. "People are still talking about last night. You didn't just exhibit, you exposed something." "Thank you." Emily smiled. She hadn't expected gratitude. She hadn't expected healing to be shared. But it had. The gallery space had become something more than a room of art. It had become a mirror, and people had finally seen themselves, clearly, quietly. Later that day, she returned to the studio. Ruth met her with a proud hug. "You know," she said, "that third chair piece? I had a woman ask if she could get a print. Said it reminded her of the night her husband fell out of love but stayed anyway." Emily paused. "Did she buy the original?" Ruth smiled. "I told her it wasn't for sale." "Why?" "Because you haven't finished it yet." Emily looked puzzled. "There's still one more painting inside you," Ruth added. "And I think you need to paint that before you let go of this one." That night, Emily walked through her home slowly, room by room. The kitchen where she first unpacked her silence. The wall where she leaned her canvases. The corner where the sun landed at 8:23 every morning. She looked at the painting again, the invisible third chair, then turned it to face the wall. Not because she was ashamed, but because it had already done its job. She opened a new canvas, blank, wide, with no rules this time. She didn't sketch first, didn't plan, didn't think. She painted what she felt. Her fingers moved without hesitation, brush to palette, palette to canvas, again and again. Hours passed, light shifted. The world outside her window didn't interrupt. When she stepped back, her chest tightened, not from sadness, but from relief. The piece didn't have a title yet, but it had an ending. It showed a path, a river, a woman walking forward, her shadow behind her, not dark, not haunting, just there. And beside her, no third chair, no second, just her, walking forward. Emily didn't cry when she looked at it. She exhaled. She wiped her hands on a towel, set the brush down, and opened the window. Fresh air poured in. So did peace. Roy wasn't looking for her when he found the article. He wasn't on social media. He hadn't searched her name in weeks. He thought he'd buried the urge to know where she was, what she was doing, if she still thought of him. But one afternoon, during a break between meetings he didn't want to attend, a partner forwarded a regional news link into the company chat. It read, "Portraits of a quiet goodbye. Emily Marchand's work leaves town speechless." No context, no message, just the link. Roy clicked without hesitation, and what loaded made his throat close. There she was, standing beside a painting he knew without needing to study. He recognized the table, the lighting, the posture of the figure that wasn't quite a man, but absolutely him. It was the chair, the one he hadn't turned toward her enough times, the one he left empty, emotionally, even while sitting in it. The article was simple. It didn't romanticize her pain, didn't overanalyze the story. It let the images do most of the talking. A few lines struck him, though. She paints not for revenge or drama, but as a record of what love looks like when it's left to fend for itself. These portraits feel like the pages of a journal written in silence, not screaming, just truth. Roy closed the laptop. He didn't cry, but something inside him twisted, slowly, like a gear in an old machine that hadn't moved in years. He walked to the window of his office and stared out at the skyline he once believed was his. He'd conquered cities, he'd commanded boardrooms, but he had never truly seen the woman who sat across from him for 10 years. And now, the only place he could find her was on a canvas. He called his assistant. "Cancel the dinner with Harrison Group. All of it. All of it. Do I tell them you're rescheduling?" "No." She paused. "Okay." He hung up, opened his drawer, pulled out the old envelope she had once left a handwritten letter in. It was blank now, but he held it anyway. Roy packed light. No suit, no tie, just a coat, the one Emily bought for him on their 5th anniversary. It was wool, too warm for the season, but he wore it anyway. He didn't call ahead, didn't text, didn't even know the exact address. He just knew the name of the town now. Pinneglan. That was enough. The drive was long. He took the back roads, not because they were faster, but because they gave him time to think, to remember, to forget how often he dismissed her presence because he thought it was guaranteed. He pulled into town just before sunset. It smelled like pine and early winter. The gallery was easy to find. People were walking in, dressed softly. No noise, no flashes, no velvet ropes. He waited across the street for a while, watching, until he saw her. Emily stood near the entrance, wearing a navy sweater dress, hair tied back, sleeves pushed to her elbows. She looked calm, not like someone performing calm, but like someone who had truly made peace. Roy's throat tightened, because he could already feel that this wasn't going to be a reunion, it would be a reckoning, and he was ready. Roy stepped into the gallery without fanfare. No one noticed. No one turned to gawk or whisper or lift their phones. He wasn't Roy Calderon, billionaire CEO, in this room. He was just a man walking into a space that was already full of truth. Soft lighting illuminated the walls. He moved slowly, hands in his coat pockets, eyes adjusting to the intimacy around him. There was no dramatic music, no grand statement, just raw emotion painted in color and shape. He walked past the first two canvases, his breath shallow. Then he saw it. The invisible third chair. He stopped moving, stared. It wasn't a literal image of him. Emily hadn't drawn his face or signature jawline or any features. But he knew. He knew from the posture, the position of the wine glass on the table, the single fork untouched, the second plate, full, cooling, and the chair, his chair, angled just slightly away from hers. Not turned, not empty, just distant, indifferent. It was a more painful truth than a scene of shouting or betrayal. It was the visual of quiet abandonment, of someone showing up late emotionally, day after day, until the other person no longer waited. He stared at the painting for a long time, so long that someone beside him whispered, "It hits hard, doesn't it?" He nodded, but didn't speak. He kept moving. Every painting on the wall told a chapter he hadn't read when he had the chance. He saw a portrait of a woman stirring soup alone. A candle burned halfway. A clock with no hands. A man standing in a hallway with a suitcase, facing away from a mirror. Each image cut deeper, not because of what they showed, but because he recognized what they no longer needed to say. Then he saw her, Emily, across the room, near a group of older women admiring a piece titled "Dinner for No One." She smiled politely, answered a question, tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Roy stayed where he was. She hadn't seen him yet, and for a moment he wanted to turn around, leave her in peace. But something in him said no, not because he expected a second chance, but because she deserved to see that he finally showed up, with nothing rehearsed, nothing owed, just truth. Emily turned and caught him in the corner of her eye. She didn't flinch. She didn't smile. She didn't walk away. She simply nodded, like she had been expecting this moment. Not today, not here, but eventually. He walked over slowly. They stood beside each other, facing a canvas of a single hand, placing a wine glass at an empty seat. He spoke first. Long drive. She didn't turn to him. Long silence, she replied. He exhaled. I read the article by accident. No such thing as accidents, she said. Just things we ignored until we couldn't anymore. He nodded. I never asked what you needed, he said. You asked, she corrected. You just didn't wait for the answer. Roy looked at her. Really looked. Her face wasn't bitter. It wasn't angry. It was clear, like someone who had walked through fire and refused to carry the smoke. They stood there for a while. No one interrupted. No one knew what was being exchanged between them. She finally turned to him, voice quiet. You came to see the painting? He nodded. And I see it now, he said. I just didn't back then. She gave a soft, knowing smile. That's the problem with absence, Roy. It doesn't feel urgent until it's permanent. He didn't ask if she was happy. He could see she was, and for once, he didn't try to ruin it with a promise. He just looked at her and said, I'm sorry I wasn't the chair you needed. Then, he turned and walked out. This time, She didn't stop him. Because this time, he didn't leave anything unfinished. The gallery door clicked shut behind Roy. Emily stood still. Her hands weren't shaking. Her breath stayed steady. But something inside her had shifted. Not backward, not forward, just settled. She turned back to the painting. The invisible third chair had never looked more complete. Not because Roy had seen it, but because she had. For so long, she painted from memory, from pain, from what hadn't been said. But tonight, she had watched someone face what he used to avoid. And something about that made her exhale differently. The rest of the evening passed like a soft wave. People filtered out. Ruth handed her a warm drink. A few visitors lingered, whispering words of thanks, of understanding, of quiet applause. "You helped me understand why I always felt alone at my own table," one woman said. Another left a note tucked into the guest book. "Thank you for painting what I couldn't say out loud." Emily didn't respond with words. She nodded, placed her hand gently over theirs. Connection didn't always need sound. By the time the lights dimmed and the room emptied, she stood alone in front of her last piece. It wasn't the third chair anymore. It was the window painting, the one with sheer curtains and an open sky, the one with no people at all. And still, it held more peace than any portrait she'd ever made. Ruth approached quietly from the back room. "You good?" she asked. Emily nodded. "No regrets?" Ruth said gently. "None," Emily replied. "You think he came to win you back?" Emily shook her head. "No. He came to see what I became without him." Ruth smiled. "And?" Emily's eyes never left the canvas. "Whole." Later that night, back at the cottage, Emily poured herself tea and sat at the small table by the window. Not painting, not journaling, not overthinking, just being. She reached for her phone, not to scroll, but to write something down. A note, a caption, a memory. She typed, "Some stories don't end with closure. They end with clarity." Then she turned off her screen and sat in the quiet she had earned. Across town, in a modest motel room, Roy lay on the edge of a stiff bed, staring at the ceiling. He wasn't angry. He wasn't pleading. He was still. He had walked into that gallery thinking he'd see her pain. But what he saw instead was his own absence reflected back at him. He had given money, comfort, safety, but not presence. And now, the only place she kept him was on a wall. He whispered to the room, "She didn't leave because I lied. She left because I disappeared while standing right in front of her." No one answered. But for the first time, he didn't need an answer. He just needed to sit with that truth. Emily didn't sleep that night. She didn't need to. She rested. There's a difference between a tired body and a tired soul, and for the first time in years, her soul wasn't heavy anymore. She sat in her favorite chair, blanket wrapped around her legs, window open just enough to let in the cool air. The lake outside was still. The stars held steady. She sipped her tea slowly, and then she smiled. Not because of Roy, not because of closure, but because she knew, without doubt, that she had nothing left to prove. The next morning, she returned to the gallery to help Ruth close up. Boxes were being packed, easels folded. The space was returning to its blank slate. Ruth handed her a notebook. "You got a lot of comments, some from art buyers, a couple from magazine editors, and..." She paused. "Someone left this." Emily took the envelope. No name on it. No message outside. Inside, a note written in familiar, neat script. "I finally understand what silence costs. You painted the parts of me I never wanted to see. Thank you for not screaming. Thank you for walking. Thank you for surviving me." No signature. She didn't need one. She folded the note and placed it between the pages of her sketchbook. Not as a keepsake, but as a record. A reminder that some apologies come without asks, and some men only learn after they've lost the right to explain. Across town, Roy sat in his parked car, staring out at the lake. He hadn't slept either, not because he was broken, but because he was finally seeing clearly. He didn't walk back to the gallery, didn't try to find her again. He simply sat, let the quiet confront him, and then, without ceremony, he started his engine and drove away. Weeks passed. Emily painted daily now. She taught a small class at the local community center. Mostly women. Some teens. A few older men who had lost wives or stories they never told. She didn't talk about her past, but her paintings did. One afternoon, a girl in her class pointed to a new canvas. It was soft, warm tones. A woman sitting alone, not sad, not abandoned, but whole, content, surrounded by light. "Is that you?" the girl asked. Emily looked at the image, paused, then answered, "Yes." She submitted that piece to a regional art show months later. She titled it, "Peace, Not Return." 3 weeks passed before Emily saw his name again. It wasn't on her phone. It wasn't in a headline. It was handwritten, on the back of a receipt from a bookstore in Peniglan, folded inside an envelope delivered to the gallery. No return address. Just a simple note. "I'm still learning how to speak without hurting, but if you ever want to talk, I'll be in town one more night. I'll bring coffee from the bakery you liked. 7 a.m. Thursday. The bench near the lake." She didn't respond, didn't need to. But Thursday morning, she was there. Roy was already seated. Same coat, no watch, one coffee in each hand. He looked up when she approached but didn't stand. She sat beside him, quiet. They watched the mist lift slowly off the water. He handed her the cup without speaking. The silence between them wasn't sharp now. It was neutral, respectful. He cleared his throat first. "I've been going to therapy," he said softly. "Good," she replied. "Didn't think I'd ever be that guy. People don't think there'll be a lot of things until they lose everything." Roy stared at the water. "I didn't know how far gone we were." Emily took a sip, then set the cup down beside her. "Because you weren't the one starving." That stung. But it was true, and he didn't deny it. "I've stepped back from the company," he said. She raised an eyebrow. "Temporarily, maybe longer. I needed to know who I am without it." Turns out I didn't like the answer. Emily nodded, not out of support, but acknowledgement. "I read every article about your show," he said. "I figured they were all kind," he added. "They weren't meant to be cruel." "I know. That's what hurt the most." He looked at her fully now. Her face, her hands, the curve of her shoulder in the light sweater. She looked like she belonged here. She looked nothing like the version of her he left behind. "I'm not here to ask for you back," he said. Emily blinked, slow. "But if I was, what would you say?" She turned her head just enough to meet his eyes. "I'd say you're asking the wrong person. That version of me doesn't live here anymore." He smiled, a soft, sad thing. "Yeah, I figured." They sat for another 10 minutes in silence. Birds chirped. The breeze shifted. He didn't reach for her hand. She didn't move away, but there was no pull, no hint of something left unsaid. Everything had been said, even the parts they never dared voice before. When she stood, he stood too. "Goodbye, Roy." He nodded, not just in acceptance, but in understanding. "Take care of your peace, Em." She smiled. "I already am." Then she walked away, her steps sure, her breath calm, her heart untouched by doubt. Roy watched her disappear up the hill until she turned a corner and faded behind the trees. Then he sat back down and finally drank his own coffee. Cold, but not bitter, not anymore. Roy didn't return to New York immediately. He stayed one more day in Peniglan, not to chase Emily, but to remember her. He walked the local streets slowly, stopping at the bookstore where the cashier wore glasses too, big for her face, and recommended a poetry book because it feels like healing without preaching. He bought it, then wandered into the bakery. He sat in the corner booth, the same one where Emily once waited for him when he was running 2 hours late for their anniversary dinner. Back then, she'd brought him a slice of their wedding cake she'd frozen for the moment. She'd joked, "Since you forgot dessert, I brought our first." He never remembered to thank her for that. Back in his hotel room, Roy opened the book. Inside the cover, someone had scribbled a quote, "Sometimes the apology isn't, 'I'm sorry.' It's who you become after." He read it twice, then once more. And for the first time in years, he felt something inside him loosen. Meanwhile, Emily was prepping her next exhibit. It had no grand title yet, but the concept was simple: restoration, not in the form of romantic reunion, but in small moments. A hand reaching for paint again, a child learning to sketch their feelings, a widow painting the eyes of her late husband without crying, a man drawing a dinner table with every chair full stories of people who chose growth without revenge. At home, she laid out blank canvases. Each one represented someone who'd been hurt, who walked away, who didn't burn the bridge, but didn't wait by it either. She worked quietly, music low, tea warm beside her brushes. She didn't check her phone, didn't look for updates from New York. She was done with chasing noise. What she had now was voice. Roy flew home the next day. No dramatic airport scenes, no last-minute texts. He returned to an apartment that once felt like power. Now it echoed. He didn't fill it. He emptied it. Old trophies, plaques, magazine covers, all packed and stored. He kept only one thing on the shelf, a small photo of Emily painting on. Their old balcony, barefoot, hair tied up, sunlight across her face. She didn't know he still had it. He didn't frame it for nostalgia. He framed it to remember the cost of forgetting. At his office, he began mentoring interns instead of leading strategy meetings. He donated to art foundations anonymously. He called his mother weekly now, not for show, but for presence. Emily never spoke of Roy again, not with anger, not with longing. When asked about her past by a reporter at her next exhibit, she simply said, "Some people teach you how to break, some people teach you how to heal, and some do both." The article quoted it as her final word on love, but Emily knew it wasn't final, just enough. Spring in Peneglan didn't rush. It arrived the way healing does, slowly, with no need to announce itself. One bloom at a time, one softened breeze after a long winter, one silent morning when you realize the pain isn't the loudest thing in the room anymore. Emily opened her windows that morning. No fanfare, just fresh air, filtered sunlight, and the familiar creak of the wooden frames in her rented cottage. There was no champagne, no celebratory breakfast, just quiet. Her exhibit, Restoration, had finished its run the week before. Every canvas sold. Critics called it a quiet revolution. Guests called it unexpectedly personal, but it wasn't the praise that lingered for Emily. It was the notes, left behind like echoes, tucked into envelopes, scribbled on the backs of gallery brochures, etched on post-it notes and stuck to the donation jar beside the entrance. She kept them in a small box in her bedroom drawer, not to reread daily, but to remind herself that she hadn't just survived something. She had translated survival into something others could hold. They wrote things like, "I thought I was the only one carrying this ache. I picked up my paintbrush after 10 years. Thank you. Your work helped me leave my silence." And one, folded twice and sealed in gold paper. "You didn't paint heartbreak, you painted survival with grace. I don't know how to do that yet, but I want to try." She never found out who left that one. She didn't need to. Some gifts don't come with names, they come with purpose. Emily returned to teaching after the exhibit closed. 2 days a week, afternoon classes, no publicity, no banners. Word traveled on its own. People came from neighboring towns. A few drove from states away, not to be near her, but to be near the energy her story created. That quiet resilience that wrapped itself around broken people like a soft blanket and whispered, "You're not too late." In class, she didn't talk about her past. She talked about lines, about shading, about silence between colors. But her students knew, and they painted with more honesty than they ever had before. One Friday, after class, she stayed behind to clean. The studio smelled like turpentine and honeyed tea. The light was golden through the windows, soft and wide. Dust floated in the air like gentle reminders of everything unfinished. She stood in front of a blank canvas, not frozen, not intimidated, just present. She didn't pick up a brush. She just stood, then smiled. In New York, Roy received a letter. No return address, no message, just a newspaper clipping, folded perfectly. He opened it at his desk. The paper was from a local Pinneglen journal. Small town, black and white, no ads. The headline read, "Emily Marchand to speak at Women in Art Conference, Restoration as Resistance Theme Draws Global Audience." The photo showed her smiling softly, paint on her cheek, hair tied up in a messy bun. She looked real, rooted, exactly as he remembered her, and nothing like the woman he last tried to replace. He didn't frame the clipping. He folded it again, slid it into his wallet behind his driver's license, not as a way back, but as a bookmark. To remember the page, he stopped reading too soon. That night, Roy was scheduled to speak at a university. They'd asked him to give a talk about wealth building, venture capital, and personal branding. But that night, something in him shifted. He stood at the podium, looked at the rows of young, wide-eyed students, future founders, future failures, future someone's heartbreaks if no one warned them. So he didn't talk about stocks. He talked about silence, about empty seats, about a woman who once left a note on a marble counter that changed the entire meaning of love for him. "I thought I built empires," he said, "but I never learned how to build peace at my own dinner table." Don't confuse success with connection. Don't wait until silence becomes someone's answer to your absence. The room fell silent. Then a girl in the second row stood and clapped. One by one, the others followed. Not because it was a good speech, but because it was honest. Back in Pinneglen, Emily began planning her next project. It wasn't a gallery show, not a public installation. It was a workshop. No ads, no price tag, just an open studio day once a month, called Space to Begin Again. Anyone could come, paint, talk, cry, sit in silence. Some painted their past, some painted their prayers, some painted nothing and just watched. She didn't ask them to speak. She asked them to feel. On one of those Saturdays, a boy no older than 10 came in with his grandmother. He was quiet, hands in his hoodie pockets, head down. He sat in front of a blank canvas for 30 minutes without moving. Then finally asked, "Can I paint something that isn't real?" Emily said, "Of course." He nodded, dipped his brush, and painted a spaceship with wings made of feathers and a cat wearing a crown. Before he left, he whispered to her, "This is what it feels like when I'm not scared." She didn't cry until he walked out the door. That night, she painted again for herself. A new piece, a table for one, a warm plate, a steaming mug. A book opened halfway through. No third chair, no empty seat waiting to be filled. Just fullness. She titled it, Finally. It was raining the day Roy returned to Pinneglen. Not a storm, just soft, steady rain, enough to blur the outlines of things, enough to make a man question what he came to find. He didn't bring a driver, didn't wear a suit, no luxury car, just a rental that smelled like too many stories and a coat too thin for the season. The GPS guided him to a modest brick building with a wooden sign above the door, the studio at North Hill. He stood outside for a while, watching. People came and went. Most carried rolled-up canvases or tote bags with brushes sticking out. A few stopped to greet each other. Some wore laughter easily. Some carried silence like luggage. He didn't know which one he was anymore. Then he saw her. Emily, inside the studio, near the back window, speaking softly to a teenage girl. Her hand rested lightly on the girl's shoulder. Her smile, gentle, patient. Her hair tied back the same way it had been when they lived in the two-bedroom apartment in Jersey City. She hadn't changed. She had unfolded, like a painting finally complete. Roy didn't go inside. He walked away. He came back the next day, and the next. Each time he stood a little closer, until finally, on a Tuesday afternoon, he walked in. The studio smelled like turpentine and vanilla. Warm, lived in, honest, no one stared. Emily was cleaning paint jars when she saw him. Her hand paused. That was all. Then she finished screwing the lid and placed it on the shelf. No anger, no smile, just presence. He stepped forward. Hi, she said back. I don't want to take your time. You already did, she replied, but without venom. He nodded. He had no defense. I saw your new exhibit, he said quietly. The one called Finally. She didn't reply, so he tried again. It made me feel forgiven, even though I know I'm not. This time, she looked at him. Then maybe it made you feel the wrong thing, she said. He took a deep breath. What did it mean? That I stopped waiting for apologies I never needed. That silence between them wasn't tense. It was real. He looked around. You built something here. I did. And you're happy? I'm at peace. That landed harder than any insult could have. He nodded. I brought something, he said, reaching into his coat. He pulled out a worn envelope. Inside was a sketch, rough, childlike, but drawn with effort. A dinner table, one chair filled. A second chair pushed back, empty. And a third, missing. I've been trying to understand, he said, handing it to her. This is what I see now. She took the drawing, studied it, then set it on the counter. You don't need to understand everything to let something go. He nodded again. I know. There was nothing left to say, so he turned to leave. But before he reached the door, she called his name, Roy. He turned. Thank you, she said. For what? He didn't ask. He didn't need to know. Some thank yous aren't for comfort, they're for closure. He left Pinneglen that evening, didn't look back, and didn't return. 5 months later, Emily stood in her studio, sorting entries for a youth exhibit titled What We See When We're Alone. She came across one that made her pause. It was from a 10-year-old girl in a shelter downtown. The drawing? A table, 3 chairs, 2 empty, 1 occupied by a little girl reading a book with a flashlight. The caption below read, It's okay if no one shows up. I still matter here. Emily framed it, gave it the center wall. That summer, she hosted a solo retreat for women who had survived quiet betrayals. Not abuse, not violence, but the slow erosion of self in relationships that looked perfect from the outside. They painted, they cried, they laughed. They made a mosaic out of broken dinner plates. She called it Unfed Doesn't Mean Unworthy. It went viral online, not because of hashtags, but because it resonated. Emily didn't give interviews anymore, but she let her students speak. Let the work speak louder than her name. She understood now. The loudest art is sometimes made in silence. Roy, meanwhile, had sold 3 companies and started one he never planned, a non-profit for artists from underserved communities. He called it Third Chair Foundation. It funded local art programs in small towns and inner cities. He never took credit. His name was never on the board, but he read every newsletter, every thank you note. One came from Pinneglen, a child's scrawl that read, Thank you for giving my mom brushes. She paints when she's sad. Now we have happy walls. He folded that note, slid it behind Emily's article in his wallet, not as penance, but as proof that echoes can still carry something good. One evening in Pinneglen, Emily took a walk. The town had changed. Coffee shops stayed open later. A mural covered the library wall. She smiled when she saw it. A dinner table. No people. No food. Just 3 chairs. One with a bouquet of wildflowers on the seat. And painted above it, in careful cursive, We learn love by how we fill the chairs we leave behind. She didn't know who painted it, but she knew who inspired it. And for the first time in years, she whispered his name without pain. Have you ever sat at a table and felt like the third chair? Not angry, not loud, just missing. This story wasn't about betrayal. It was about presence, about how love fades when we stop showing up, and how sometimes leaving isn't revenge. It's the only way to return to yourself. So tell me, have you ever walked away so you could finally breathe? If this story spoke to something deep in you, do one thing: click like. It helps more people find stories like this. Then subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories, because every week we tell the kind of truth that lives between words. Leave a comment. What does your final painting look like? And remember, some goodbyes don't close the book, they turn the page. See you in the next story.